show on the road. A very good morning, one and all, to Coffee at 11 with my very special guest, April Drew. April, say hi with your mug, please.
With my Drew Media mug. Hello, Colin. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. I love when people bring on their own branded mugs. Happy days. Let me just tell you all the nice things April wrote about herself. Her name, April Drew. Business name, Drew Media. What does your business do? Publishing and events. How long established? 6 years. How many employees? 1. Wait to hear this. April is CEO of Drew Media. Originally hails from Tralee, County Kerry. Currently lives in Newport, Tipperary with a husband, John, and 3 children. Has been in the business of communication forever. Graduated Bristol University as an Irish Sign Language interpreter. And after traveling Europe with this career while in her 20s, April moved stateside to New York and pursued a career in journalism. During her time in New York, April received many accolades, including, wait to hear this, Kerry Woman of the Year from the Kerry Association of New York and an award from the Ashling Irish Community Centre for her work within the Irish community. Happy days. She also had a day named after her in Yonkers. October 9th, 2008 is officially April Drew Day. Now there's a first. April worked as a journalist with the Irish Voice in New York for 9 years, returned to Ireland in 2012, earned the skills to start up her own publishing business. A year after her return home to Ireland, Brides of Limerick magazine was born. Since then, April has successfully also launched Brides of Munster, Irish LGBT weddings, weddings in Ireland, and getaways with kids. April's husband, John Mooney, joined the company in June 2018 as operations manager, and together they work every day to make Drew Media a super publishing house. April's passion in life is to show her 3 children the world before they get too old to want to travel with their parents anymore. Here's a lovely, lovely sentiment. And something nobody knew about you. I once grabbed Bono in the arm during an interview and said, "You're a great lad." Mortal, she says. April Drew, an absolute pleasure, my friend. Please tell us, the assembled good and great, who is April Drew? Outside of all of that, give us the potted history up to Drew Media kicking off, please.
Thanks, Colin. And I did do that with Bono. How mortifying. So yeah, I suppose I grew up in Tralee, County Kerry, a single mom. My parents separated when I was 7, and I had a brother, and she worked really, really hard to put us through school and then through college. I was always a very, very social butterfly, loved people, and I had a grow at the time when I was a teenager for sign language. And I remember I kept going to my career guidance teacher saying, I really want to do something in sign language. And he said, there's no jobs in sign language. But luckily, when I did my leaving cert, there was a new pilot program, sign language interpreting course, being run out of the University of Bristol. So I was lucky enough to get a place in that. There was only 10 places and there was 90 people that applied. And I was the youngest by 9 years on the course. But I subsequently went on, got my degree, and became a sign language interpreter. So in between all that, then I decided I wanted to do some TV work as well. So I did a TV presenting course with RTE. Loved that. I guess I was always into communicating, people, being around people, telling people stories. Always loved that kind of, that caper, I suppose. And then eventually I met a guy from Kerry who told me he was moving to New York. And I went, really? And he said, I'm going, do you want to come? And I went, Jesus, could I? And this was a dream of mine my whole life. I mean, we're talking about 20 something years ago now. And it was, unless you went in a J1, you didn't really go to America. So anyway, up I went, and off I went with himself at the time. And it was the most amazing experience ever. So after about a year doing lots of little jobs, waitressing, working in an elevation company, I got the opportunity to go to Washington, and I was actually doing sign language interpreting for the likes of Ted Kennedy, John McCain. Basically, there was big pushes for the immigration reform. And I was asked, there was a couple of deaf people in America as well that were Irish. So they asked me to come along. So I got to share the stage with these huge, massive politicians. It was absolutely amazing. And we got to go through the walls the halls of Washington, and didn't get to the White House, but we got to, Congress and everything. So it was amazing. But anyway, came back, and the local newspaper, the Irish newspaper in New York called the Irish Voice, called me up and said, any chance you'd write an article about your experience below in Washington? And I went, oh Jesus, me writing? I went to a Gael school now, hang on, my English isn't wonderful, but I'll take a stab at it. So I think it took me about 16 hours to write 400 words. and I submitted it, and it was printed. And I remember I was waitressing at the time, and I remember buying the newspaper the next morning, and I remember seeing my name in print, and I was like, oh my God. And, you know, I just thought that was a once-off, that was fine. Delighted with myself, massive big head, working in the restaurant, all the customers come in with the newspaper. It's April, there you are, and delighted. And about a week later, I got another call from the newspaper, and they said, would you be interested in coming for an interview for a job as a reporter? And I went, what? I said, okay. And they said, look, the money's not hectic. You're probably earning double the amount of money waitressing, which is true. But I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and our local girl on the ground is leaving and moving back to Ireland, and we're looking for somebody, and we really liked the piece you wrote. Well, sure. Yes, says I, off on the train, put on my suit into Manhattan with me. We were living in an area called Yonkers, which was just outside, about 30 minutes out of the city. In I went, walked through the city, thinking I was Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, delighted with myself. And we got to the interview, and did a good interview, I guess. I don't know. There was a couple of people that interviewed, and they called me later that day and said the job is yours if I wanted it. So, my God, Colm, I was floating. I was a journalist. Well, I was going to be a journalist in New York, and I had no training. And so anyway, I was thrown right into the deep end, and it was mad. But it was the most amazing, amazing experience. So in that job, I got to do community work. I also got to interview politicians. I got to interview the likes of Bono, Liam Neeson. I got to interview Irish couples who were married 60 years, who emigrated on boats from Ireland. Like, I had the most amazing time. Now, it wasn't all, you know, roses every day. It was hard. I remember having to cover murder-suicide stories. I mean, there was a lot going on, but I really got a grasp of journalism in those 8 years. And then I also was promoted to editor of another smaller paper they had that went out at weekends. So I literally was working 7 days a week, but I didn't mind. And towards the end of that, they asked me, would I run the sales department as well? I kind of backed off the journalism a little bit because I had my first child, Colm. And then I did that. So I really learned the whole workings of how you publish a magazine or a paper, how you go out and interview, how you sell, how you run a sales department, so all of that. And in the middle of all of this, the guy I went to America with, that didn't work out. And the night I moved out from that guy, I walked into a bar, the Behan's Bar in New York, and it was Christmas Eve. And who did I see across the bar? Only John Mooney, who is now my husband. So John's from Limerick, and I'm from Kerry, and you know, that part is history. We ended up getting engaged, getting married, having 2 kids in New York, and then we decided it was time to come home.
Yeah, I'm just smiling. I mean, there's 3 lifetimes in a few years. That's unbelievable what happened there. And so your man and yourself, you split up Christmas Eve. You walk into a bar and you meet the love of your life. Hello, April. That's fantastic. That's a fairy tale story. Fairy tale in New York. Yeah. Lovely story. If I may, I'm going to invite our audience who are well used to this because of your sign language work, if we can give you the clap that we've used for all of our guests so far. So that's just
yes, I've seen you do that. Thank you. Yeah.
Pleasure having you on. Okay, so you've met the love of your life. You say, right, it's time to go back to Ireland and start again. Tell us what happened next. True Media up until COVID. Thanks.
Yeah, so basically it was 2012. It was still recession time in Ireland. Everybody was like, don't come home. But we had 2 kids, and we didn't have any family whatsoever in America. And you know, when you have children, things change. You want to be around family, aunts and uncles, cousins, all that sort of stuff. So we got a container, 20-foot container, parked our whole lives into it, and got on an Aer Lingus plane. Sadie, our daughter, was 3 months old. Colm was 18 months old. So they were teeny tiny. So we flew home, and we were very conscious that we were in the recession. So of course, I had my journals and all that, but I had to park that for a while because I knew I had a skill that I could go right back into, which was interpreting. So I'll never forget, we got off the plane that day. That evening, we got off the plane. John went for an interview in Vistacon to get a job, and he got the job. And the following day, I drove down to Kerry to interpret for I think it was the Sinn Féin Ardèche. So we were both straight back into work. My daughter was 4 months old when she went to creche. I feel so guilty about it now. But we had this work ethic from New York that you have to work. And it was a recession, so you took whatever you could. So basically we were back in the workforce very quickly. We eventually found a house and bought a house. But after about 6 months, I think, of me interpreting, and I really did, and I do really enjoy interpreting, I really missed publishing journalism. I really missed that sort of, the buzz of that. And I said to John one day, I said, I don't think there's any local wedding magazine, John, in Limerick. And I said, I loved planning our wedding. Weddings are nice. It's not as serious as, the Limerick Post or the Limerick Leader. It's a fluffy, nice industry. And he said, okay. And he said, you want to go for it? Well, is it something you're interested in doing? And I said, I think we will. So for the next 9 months, I did a Start Your Own Business course. I read up everything I could about business. I started researching venues, set up Facebook pages, all of that, websites, all of that stuff. And about a year and a half after we came home from the States, we launched Brides of Limerick, our very first issue. So that was a huge, fabulous day. And for the next year, I still interpreted, and I had the magazine. But in between that, then I kind of saw a bigger vision, a bigger publishing house. So we went on to launch Brides of Kerry, which has since become part of Brides of Munster. So I think a couple of months after that, the same-sex May the 22nd, I can't remember what year, the same-sex referendum passed. And someone just said to me, I was at a communion, and someone just said to me, Jesus, you'd have to do a same-sex wedding magazine as well. And I kind of laughed, and then I went, I mean, I could. So we did. So in the last we're 6.5 years in business. In the last 6.5 years, we have Brides of Limerick, which is now, we're on issue 27, I think we're working on. We have had a Brides of Kerry at Cork, which are now a Brides of Munster. We have Irish LGBT weddings, which is now online only. We have Weddings in Ireland, which is it's online, and it is to cater for couples who are coming from abroad into Ireland to get married into our beautiful Irish castles. We have a lot of Irish Americans that would be coming home to Ireland that utilize that website. And then we had a third child in the middle of all of this, Arden, and I discovered my passion for traveling and going away with the kids, as you well know, because you know me for so long. And on one of our holidays, we might go away 4 or 5 times a year, and on one of our holidays, I said to John, do you know what Ireland is missing? A magazine specifically for parents who travel with their children. And he said, here we go again. And I said, I think it's a great idea. So we did that. About 6 months later, we launched the first issue of Getaways with Kids, and it was very successful, but it was a national print, so it meant your print costs were enormous, and after 2 or 3 issues realized website was the way to go, and Instagram and social media. So that's about 1.5 years old, but it is definitely my baby at the moment, because that's the stage of my life that I'm at. I have 11,500 followers on Instagram, nearly 10,000 followers on Facebook, and it's all to do with traveling and traveling with kids and the fun and the places we've been and all of that. So up to this point, we have been very busy, switching from weddings to family getaways, back to weddings, and I just absolutely love it.
That's a fantastic story. I can't believe, in Dublin, by the way, yourself and John coming back from New York and having jobs within 48 hours would be known as jammy.
Everybody said that, yeah.
Living the dream, fairy tale in New York, meet the love of your life, couple of kids, you come back and you land on your feet. Were you a cat in a previous life, I wonder? But come here, the work ethic is palpable. We can sense it from you on screen here. And ideas, I do know you a long while, and ideas pop. And I have the height of respect. I know John very well, the height of respect for you. And because I can just imagine when you said, I've got another great idea. And he's going, great, April, tell me.
and he's so fab because he's so supportive, but he'll often talk me down off the shelf sometimes because he's like, really, will this work? Do you have time to put this into play? Sometimes I go, yeah, you're right. But you have to have the ideas.
You do. Without the ideas, nothing happens. But I absolutely love, April, the fact that you managed to marry your passion, always your passion, with a way of earning a crust. I love that. You're writing and journalism, and you decide, well, I'll create my, if they won't give me a job here doing that stuff, I'll create my own. Happy days. And then your passion, you always said you wanted to be able to travel with the kids, so you turned that into a business. So they now pay you to travel with your kids. Dream lifestyle stuff. Okay, listen, we're doing great, right? And everything's going swimmingly, okay? And you've re-engineered a couple of times. You want to talk about the sort of highs and lows of the Drew Media journey? I think that would be useful.
Yes.
Before we get to the COVID break, please.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because I suppose I always had a vision of having, I suppose like what I had in New York, a big newsroom on the 32nd floor. No, I was never going to have a 32nd floor in Ireland, but I always had this vision of a team of reporters and a lot of that. And, you know, me managing a lot of staff, me being the Anna Winter and all that. So we kind of went down that road. We were I had my third child and we were working from home. And after he was born and after about 9 months, I decided it's time to now, you know, take the plunge, move out, get an office, hire staff. So we did that. So it was always me for a long time. And I had some interns from UL journalism students and I was subcontracting out a lot of the work as well. So we decided to take the plunge. We got a fabulous two offices. One wasn't enough for me, so I got 2 offices in Roselawn House. Trish and there is fantastic, a great facility in Limerick. There's about 90 cluster offices. It's wonderful. So got 2 offices, hired a full-time editor, Michaela, wonderful girl, hired a sales and marketing director, Dave, and also hired somebody else, an operations manager who eventually became, that job eventually became John's, my husband's. So he left his really good paying job, albeit it was shift work, so it was awful hours, to join the business. So at one point there was me and 3 full-time staff. Then we had 2 part-time staff and we were freelancing out stuff. So we grew very big, very quickly in terms of the team. And to have that sort of team, you needed to have more products to sell. And sort of in between all of that and the jigs and the reels and trying to figure out what we could add into the business to pay the wages, basically, we started to struggle. We had to get bank loans, extend our overdraft because we had wages to pay. Money wasn't coming in as quick as we wanted it to. And I quickly realized I don't particularly like managing people. I love being friends with everybody. I don't like being that person to tell people what to do. And I just didn't like the comfort, didn't like that feeling of going to work and having to pull everybody together and say, this isn't working, or why is this not working? Why aren't these targets met? And I was also trying to sell myself as well. So there was a lot of pressure and we were trying to come up with a lot of ways back and forth and what to do. And then I remember probably early last year after my son's communion, we went away for a couple of days to Mallorca. And I remember my head was not in that holiday. And usually when I go away, I switch off, I'm with the kids, we have a ball. But the pressure was just getting too much, and it was financial, most of it, I suppose. But got to the stage where I kept trying to come up with ideas to fix everything. And one day I'd be fine, and then the next day, I'd be struggling again. So I remember saying to John, I don't know how much more of this I can do. I love my business, but I'm just not sure I love the scale of it. And he said, he sat me down and he said, what is it you want out of life? And I started crying and I said, I really want to spend more time with my kids. That's exactly what I want. And that made me really realize that I was working my ass off and I was bringing the work home in my mind and I was working late evenings. So at that point, or actually says our marketing director, he was leaving to go to the States anyway. So when he came to us and said he was leaving, I went, okay, so he's leaving. I don't have to, let anybody go. And we had a chat with everybody else on the team and we decided that we would close the office in Roselawn. We would downgrade and we'd literally just keep me and John on. So John went back to minimum wage, which was fine. And I was taking a very modest wage as well. But you know what? It was the best thing we did, Colin. We can now breathe again. It took about 6 months to sort of get back on our feet. We still have all those loans. If I walked away from the business this very second and went back interpreting, if I just decided that's it, I'm done, and who knows what's going to happen after COVID, but I would have a lot of loans to pay back. So we're at that stage where we're still paying stuff back, but the business is very viable, or was up to a couple of weeks ago. We were back on our feet. We had a tight schedule. We knew what we were doing, and there's just me and John, so it's much easier to manage, and we divvy it down the middle. I have my role, he has his role.
April, thank you for being so honest. That's what I'm hoping to achieve with this at 11. It's just because we're real people and I want people to come on and be real, and everybody so far has been, so thank you for that. And I think it's important to see there are people out there who look at people in business saying, my goodness, how lucky are they? I'm sure they had it all easy, and anybody that's got their own business knows that that's absolutely a lie. So it's important that we tell the real story. Okay, so things were going swimmingly. You retracted. You got very honest with yourself. You said, I really don't want this pressure. Don't like managing people. Love doing elements of the business. You retracted. You got back to yourself and John. You've been very honest about the loans, but we all have those, right? And then you got to you were retracting and rebuilding, and then COVID hit. So please tell us where you are now in relation to COVID and the business, please.
Okay, so I'm actually laughing when I think about COVID hit. Thankfully, we had a wedding fair. We usually have our wedding fairs in April, but we had our spring wedding fair this year on the 2nd of March. And I think it had just hit China a couple of weeks before that. And there was lots of whispers about this thing over in China, this virus, but we were all kind of laughing at it. Nobody knew at that stage what was going to happen. So I think, obviously a week or a week and a half later, everything stopped. And of course, I'm in the business of advertising. I mean, this is how we make our revenue, is through advertising our magazines, advertising our website. I had huge contracts with certain travel agents in Ireland. I had one with Disney. And all of a sudden, and it's all again advertising, all of a sudden everything stopped. The emails came in, we have to put that on pause. But we knew this was going to happen. And I suppose we're now at the stage where there is no income coming in. I have been getting the €350 a week because I'm self-employed with no income coming in. John has been made unemployed. We made him unemployed a couple of weeks ago. He is now in receipt of that $350. Thank God. And the government have been amazing. So everything is at a standstill. When let's say the country opens up again in 4 weeks' time, our business isn't going to open up in 4 weeks' time because people aren't going to just spend money on advertising day one. A lot of people go back to work, they'll receive their wages. I would think we will be 3 to 6 months behind all of that because, again, advertising is the last thing, is the first thing to go and the last thing to be reintroduced. So, and we're owed a lot of money in as well from advertising the last couple of issues and things like that. So I'm a little bit worried, but we are making provisions, I suppose, to try and, we're not going to be printing our summer issue of our magazine because there will be no advertising in it and we don't have the money to print all the magazines, but we will hopefully have one again in the autumn. We're making provisions for a big wedding fair in the autumn. So we're keeping ourselves busy. And I suppose what I've been doing up to this point, and I just explained it all, I've been busy working in the business. Now we have this perfect opportunity and we are taking this time to work on the business. So what is working? What's not working? What could we slack back on? What can we bring in to enjoy more? It's not even about the money, it's about the enjoyment. As I mentioned to you, I'm a real people's person and I've really realized through this whole lockdown and being at home all the time with my lovely family, who I love dearly, but I definitely feel that I'd like to be out more meeting people, whether that's meeting couples or meeting, having more meetings with hotels and advertisers. I prefer the face-to-face. I hate emails. I hate phone calls. As you know, I don't pick up the phone. I hate phone calls, but I love that face-to-face interaction. So if I can introduce that more for myself and for my own enjoyment, and I'm going to do that. So there's lots of things we're doing to prepare for when we are back on track again.
I love it. And yes, you're absolutely a face-to-face person, April. Couple of things there. You mentioned 4 weeks. Do you know something we don't know? Do you reckon this is going to...
Yes, that was an example. That's wishful thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think you've got a more realistic take on it by saying, well, your industry is 3 to 6 months lagging behind the rest of us. So there's a period here where we're all going to feel the pain and have to reinvent and reimagine. Delighted, if I may say, and congrats. I'm not at all surprised that you're working on your business now. You haven't just, gone to seed. You're actually asking yourself the hard questions. Eamon put a lovely note in. He says, what a powerful reflective question. What do you want out of life? Thank you. But it's absolutely true. And now, folks, if I may, led by April Drew, that's the time for us all to ask that question. What do we want out of life? Let's come out of COVID when the time is right. Different people and better people. Please God, as a result. So I'm well impressed. I'm well impressed with where you're at. I'm well impressed with your journey. I know you a long time, as you know. In fact, I was just remembering the last cup of coffee you and I had face to face here in Ballina.
Yeah.
It's been a lovely time, but it seems like 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that again. You're using Zoom now. Tell me, you started interviewing people yourself, if I'm not mistaken, or doing meetings. Am I right in saying that on this medium? Tell us more about that.
So this is my very first time on Zoom. So I haven't used Zoom up to this point, and I definitely will be after this. But no, we've been doing, so I just thought, how can I still keep our advertisers relevant and how can we keep busy myself? So we started doing Facebook and Instagram lives with the wedding industry crew. So we've interviewed Elena from the Woodlands, who's also the president of the Irish Hotel Federation. So she's got a fun job at the moment. We've interviewed a few different people in the wedding industry, and that will continue. I have 2 more interviews later today. but I've also moved on to the Getaways page as well, and we've now started setting up live interviews with moms, people who travel, people who have kids, some people who have stuff going on in their lives. There's a girl later on I'm interviewing today, or is it tomorrow, who's just recovered from cancer, you know. So I'm going to keep using that platform to I suppose keep our audience entertained and keep the content level good. And I enjoy this as well. I really do.
And I think April, this is showing everybody, all of us, yourself and myself, our clients, our suppliers, it's showing us all a new way of being very effective in communication, this online video stuff. So into the future, your face-to-face meetings with hotel, marketing managers or whatever might very comfortably be done like this. And for me, that's a godsend, because I hate driving. Right?
Yeah.
I was 45-minute meeting with my business partner, Porrick O'Malley, and I drive an hour and a half to get there and an hour and a half back. So like lose 4 hours for one meeting. Now we're getting a 45-minute meeting done, and it's done and dusted within the hour, which is fantastic. April Drew, an absolute pleasure knowing you, and an absolute pleasure having you on this morning, coffee at 11. We're going to go to Q&A in just a minute from the floor, because there's tons of stuff in there. I'm quite sure there are people busy writing notes and ready to throw up their hand. Before we ask for Q&A from the floor, can you give us one tip? What one thing would you recommend to any of us on the call here that you do on a regular basis to keep your head straight during COVID?
There's a lot of things I do, but my main thing is, and I've kind of only started doing this lately, is I get up really early and I get out walk. When I say really early, I'm talking about 8:30, 9 a.m. now, but I get out for a walk and I spend about an hour and a half on that walk listening to a business podcast. I take 20 minutes to just breathe, listen to nature. And then I spend the last 10 minutes or so just checking in. Maybe I'll give my mother a quick call or a friend. So I kind of, even though I'm going for my walk, I'm getting my exercise and I'm building up those steps, which is brilliant for my mind. And I might challenge myself some days for a quick run. But I also make use of that time. So I listen to a podcast. I am one with nature, as they say, which is really, really good. And then I give someone a quick call and then I'm home for the day then.
I love it. There's a common theme coming through all the tips from people over this series, and it's about exercise, it's about headspace, it's about calm, it's about educating yourself, and it's definitely not about going to seed. I'm going to go to Q&A. Who wants to ask a question of April? Stick up your hand there. Sarah, I'll just come to you in just 1 second. I see a nice note in from Fiona Doyle. Fiona says, I've worked with April and John, and they are an amazing and hard-working team. Pleasure to deal with. I've attended a few of their wedding fairs, and they are such successful events. They always have fantastic attendance at them, all from vendors to couples who attend, and the atmosphere is always so lovely. Wishing you continued success. April, I also love your fun and honest posts on Instagram when you're on holidays with family and friends, and looking forward to many more of those when all this passes. Love your authenticity, and that's from our mutual friend, Fiona Doyle. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, Fiona.
Sarah.
Hi.
Live.
Hi, how you doing? I love all your stories, what you experienced and everything. It's fantastic and sounds like you've had a very exciting life. I just wanted to know, have you ever thought of going on TV with your show, taking your kids on holidays and stuff, and do it on TV?
A few people have actually said this to me, but I don't know. I think I like being my own boss and having my own time to do what I want to do. And I think if you do a show like that, and listen, never say never, you can see me next year on TV, but I think you have to abide by, do you know what it is? I see them when they send these people off on travel shows and they have to go into the water. I can't swim. And I often think I could never do a show like that. But no, I think you're sort of restricted on the person you can be and what you can say. And I like to be as authentic as I can. So I kind of like doing my own thing through my own channels at the moment. Obviously that would be a much bigger audience and I'd be famous then, but it'd be great. Who knows? But at the moment I'm happy doing what I am doing, I guess.
Okay, lovely. Anyway, enjoy it.
Thank you.
Great observation, Sarah. Folks, can we just see it? Let's give a clap. We can all just see it. Fantastic. Sarah, that was lovely. Thank you. Couple who wants to ask a question? I'm just going to read a note there. Wave at the camera. So Edwina says, this is similar to my morning ritual, April. Podcast is a great way to feed your mind with positive vibes and set you up for the day ahead. And then Lizak says, hi April, us Limerick and Munster wedding suppliers are so lucky to have you and John representing us. Your enthusiasm and can-do attitude is infectious. Looking forward to the next wedding fair / wedding supplier hangout. Cheers from Lisa at Moss and Mushroom. Isn't that lovely?
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Question from the floor. Oh, Eamon Smith. Give me just 2 seconds. You're live.
Grant. Thanks, Colin. Good morning, April. Thank you so much for sharing. Very vulnerable and very authentic and very inspiring. So I suppose, listen to what you said, and I really enjoyed it. And I was taking a couple of notes and the similarity in our mornings. Yeah, very much to kind of kickstart the day. When you said, and then you're home for the afternoon, could maybe share something rather than killing time. What might you do that you enjoy that fills time for you?
Oh, Eamon, I have a strict schedule. I did the first week. I'm not going to lie. The first week you were like, this is fabulous. We can watch TV. No, I get home and then I do homework with the kids. Now they're on Easter break at the moment. We do the Joe Wicks workout, which is a half an hour workout. So I would do that a lot with them. Then they would be doing their homework and I would help them. After that, I would do an hour's housework, all going well. I would have lunch and then I would come into the office in the afternoon. As I said before, John is in the business too. So he would work in the morning time. I would work in the afternoon. So usually I'm in the office from 2 to 5 and I'm either doing Instagramming, I'm emailing, I'm working on the business. Head out at 5, we have our dinner. Some evenings we would go for a little walk as a family. Other evenings we don't, we just laze around. And then the kids are in bed by 8 and we look forward to sitting down to our 2 hours of Netflix and we have certain programs we watch. I thrive, Eamon, on routine. And I find the weekends actually harder because it's much more free. I actually find the weekends harder. And it's quite interesting. I've been lately tracking my mood. This is a bit out there now, but I've just started tracking every day how my mood is and how my energy levels are and my positivity. And I notice, just looking back on it, I've been doing it for 3 weeks. There's one day every weekend that I have kind of a low day. So I'm great during the week and I'm great for one day during the weekend, but usually either a Saturday or a Sunday, I kind of hit a slump. And I'm putting that down to not being busy enough. So
that's your trigger, is the lack of routine in that day is kind of,
I think so.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Because I know myself in my own kind of field that for me, I was saying feeling drives everything. So it's interesting what you're saying there. You're tracking the feeling. That's really cool. I think I might start doing that myself.
Yeah.
Eamon, a very perceptive question and a great question as ever. Thank you for being part of the audience. April Drew, I've got one question if I may. And the question is, what are your values?
Interesting, because again, John asked me this quite recently and we were talking about values and it's something I've never sat down and really, really thought about. But when he put it to me, the first thing that popped in my head was traveling with my children. And I know that, again, that sounds a little bit out there, but everything I do is towards that. I never want to be a millionaire. I never want to have a massive house and beautiful cars. I just want to spend time with my lads traveling. And I actually prefer, like we were thinking about going to Dubai and someone said to me recently, you go just yourself and John. And I went, no, I'm going with the kids because there's just so much to do with the kids there. But I get such joy in seeing their innocence and their face. And that's where I'm at my best. I'm the happiest when I'm, with them. And when we're out of our own regular environment, obviously there's days where I'm fit to kill them, but when we're away and we're experiencing life and experiencing the world, Arjun, my 3-year-old, just asked Alexa a couple of minutes ago. My older kids were like, Alexa, do fart sounds? And my 3-year-old said, Alexa, how do pilots know where they're going? So he's inbred it into the travel. He keeps saying to me, when this is over, Mommy, will you take me to Peppa Pig Land? And will you take me? So that's where my values are. And as John said, well, April, if that's your value, you won the lotto because all we do is travel, up to this point. So yeah, that's it.
April Drew, you're one of the most authentic people that I've ever met in my life. And you wear your heart on your sleeve. None of us guess what's going on with you at any given moment. And you're honest to a fault, but it's just beautiful and a real pleasure knowing you and a real pleasure having you on Coffee at 11 this morning. Folks, my pleasure having you along. Please come back again tomorrow for my next Coffee at 11 featuring Leonie Lynch, PhD. And Leonie is founder of a business called Justbe. Leonie tells me she is into brands. She's into Pilates and movement. She's into music. She's into women's health and she's into art. So tomorrow's coffee at 11 sounds like it's going to be a fascinating one. Look forward to seeing you there. And thank you once again, April Drew, for being my guest on this morning's coffee at 11. I'm going to invite everybody to give you the deaf community clap. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, April Drew. And you take care. Namaste. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Colin, and thanks for everyone for listening. Slán!